So this is a little core exercise that you can use to both kind of train your core and your awareness, but it also is a great way of demonstrating how we can use reaches and use actually this movement in our upper body to better connect us with our core. So you will need a dumbbell. It does not need to be heavy, probably something in like a 3 to 10 pound range. And if you don't have a dumbbell, anything that has a little bit of load to it could work. So it could be, sometimes in class we'll use a cork yoga block, it could be a water bottle. It's just something that has a little bit of load. And if all else fails, you could also just reach with your hands. That will work as well. So I'm going to start off on the floor and I'm going to walk us into this very specifically. So bear with me for this first kind of setup. So you're going to lay on the floor. You're going to take your weight, whatever you're holding, so that it's in both hands. And you're going to start off by just reaching that weight up towards the ceiling. As you reach, let that upper back, or let the back of the shoulders lift away from the floor, feeling the shoulder blades widen. Now, just to feel what that does in your rib cage and in your upper back, we're going to do the opposite. You're going to keep your elbows straight, but pull the back of the shoulders towards the floor. Maybe even squeeze the shoulder blades towards the spine a little bit, and feel how that pushes your rib cage away from the floor, and then come into that reach again. So reach the weight up towards the ceiling, letting the shoulder blades move wide, back of the shoulders lift, and feel how that draws the rib cage into the floor a little bit more. So you should feel the back of your rib cage back here has just gotten a little bit heavier into the floor. You might also notice that when you reach, that you start to create a little bit of activity in your abdominal wall here. So you might feel some muscles starting to turn on in the sides of your abdominal wall. So it's key here that this reach is sustainable and it's not creating a lot of unwanted tension in the neck and shoulders. And the reach is this vertical motion of the weight, and your arms are kind of moving vertically as well. So we don't want the shoulders to be shrugging up to the ears. So we're going to hold on to that reach. So I'm going to maintain that position throughout the duration of this exercise. So I'm not doing that repeatedly. I'm just going to reach and keep that upper back nice and wide. From here, I'm going to start to feel my breath. And as I exhale next time, I'm going to start to exhale as much air out as I can, fogging up a mirror on the way. So I'm going to create that little resistance in the back of my throat, fogging up a mirror. And hopefully that connects you with more tension in your core. See if you can keep that core tension online. So don't relax your tummy muscles, and inhale. For a lot of people, this is where they start to feel challenged. If I opened up my upper back and that space within the rib cage and in that space between the shoulder blades is not holding too much tension, I should be able to inhale and that air kind of pushes back into the back of me and almost presses back into the floor. So you might be able to see that that actually kind of lifts me up away from the floor. So from here, we're going to now sustain the reach, sustain that tension in your core. So don't release the tension in your core. And we're going to find a little hip movement as we exhale this next time. But as you lift your leg, you want to minimize the movement of your pelvis and your rib cage against the floor. So I often describe this like I'm laying on a super soft sandy beach and I'm not going to smush the sand around. So I'm going to exhale, find a little more tension in my core. And as I do so, I'm going to lift this right leg. When I pick that right leg up off the floor, I don't want to feel any shifting in my torso, in my pelvis, any shifting of me over top of the floor. So if I was laying on a soft sandy beach, I wouldn't be smushing the sand around. I'm going to pause with this right leg lifted with that right knee directly over my right hip. So don't let your knee drop towards your nose. Challenge yourself to hold that over top of the hip, a nice vertical thigh, and hold for another inhale. Test your ability to breathe while you're holding tension, while you're stabilizing, and then exhale. Find a little more control as you add the second leg. If adding the second leg cause you to lose position, or you aren't able to stabilize through here, you're going to keep this with just the single leg lifted, and we're just going to hold that for our breaths. If when you lift that second leg, you can do so with control of both the position and the tension of your core, you can hold this. Now we're holding the position, but our primary focus is to also breathe as we control our position. So I want to hold this position, both legs lifted, knees over hip joints, for 5, well, I usually give people a range, anywhere from 2 to 6 breaths. Longest exhale you can do, followed by a nice full inhale that pushes back into the floor behind you. When you're starting to feel yourself fatigue, and that could feel like I'm losing control of my position, or it might feel like I'm starting to hold my breath, you're going to start to lower one leg at a time, aiming to control that position until both feet are on the floor. And then you can relax, okay? So this is often a lot harder than people think, but you can adjust the challenge of it. So I already talked about how if when you lifted your first leg, you're already starting to feel like you're wanting to hold your breath, or you were challenged to really stabilize that pelvis and rib cage, then you could hold that. If you did get that second leg up to join and you avoided the shift, but it feels too hard to be able to breathe, you could bring the knees ever so slightly towards the nose, not dropping them, because this really isn't a lot of work, and you probably saw that pulled my pelvis and I lost control of my position. If you felt like, no, I was able to hold that initial knee over hip position quite comfortably, I could breathe at least 5 breaths, I felt that good expansion into my rib cage, and you want to work harder, you could just move those knees a little farther away from your nose, and or take the weight farther away from the knees. But our primary goal with this exercise is positional control. So rib cage and pelvis are rock solid stable. They are orienting towards each other, and there's no shifting happening as the legs and possibly the weight move. And you can breathe. And when I say breathe, I mean fully breathe. Like full long exhales followed by an inhale that is able to expand and fill you up almost as completely as you would if you weren't working while you did this. So there's some details to this, but this is a really good, simple way of building up a little more awareness and connection into kind of finding that stacked and stable, connected core. Okay?